Old traditions are hard to break, except when it comes to colonized culture, colonized revisionist culture. We can fall back from the celebratory gatherings of family and unity of our blood relatives in the spirit of knowing better and doing better, and protecting our peace. But we can't give up our pork, Christmas, or Thanksgiving. Okay, that's no way to start a show, right? I'll be right back. Well, hello, hello, and welcome to In Your Ear Radio. I am your host, Latoya. So very happy to be with you today um, on this beautiful Saturday. It's so nice out here. The weather is just lovely, and I'm happy about it. And I hope you all are doing well. Thank you for joining me live here on In Your Ear Radio, uh, Facebook and YouTube. Appreciate y'all. Appreciate y'all. And y'all know what I got to do. I got to go ahead and share this video. So let me do that now while you guys hop in. Share this to my group. All right, so that's done. I did try to tag somebody, but I'll try it again later. But okay, so yeah, we are on the heels of a holiday week, and there's a lot going on. So we got a lot to talk about, and I'm happy to be here with you guys. So how's everybody doing? Okay, how's your mama doing? And tell I want my playback. Y'all know that's going to be the saying, because this is the season where we're all going to be taking plates home, sharing pots and pans, and hopefully getting them back, right? So, you know, I just thought I'd just go ahead and throw that in since we'll be talking like that anyway. Oh, let's see, so much going on, so much going on. Yeah, it's been nice to start off my weekend. I kicked off my Friday. You guys, there's been so many 50th birthday celebrations this year. A lot of my friends and family are turning 50. They're joining the 50 club. And most of them aren't doing any big parties. They're doing like just low key gatherings with their closest friends and family or taking a trip or maybe nothing. And I'm just taking a note because I just think that's interesting because that is a milestone birthday, and consider that you know the majority of the people that I know who turned 50 this year didn't really turn up. And so I thought that was pretty interesting. But yeah, I haven't yet joined the 50s club, but I'm so happy to be here to celebrate those who have. Y'all look good too. We look real good. I got to say that. People in that age group, my sisters and brothers, yeah, black don't crack for real. But it's great. So I shout out to Miss Trish. Let me go ahead and get my shout out into my girl. Y'all know she co-hosts with me here on In Your Ear Radio After Dark. And she celebrated her 50th. And I don't mind telling y'all that because I know that she posted all over her page that she had just entered into the 50. So last night she had what she called an orientation into her 50. So again, inviting her close friends and families. We celebrated together, did karaoke, and that was fun. And so I just want to give her a special shout out, celebrating her birthday yesterday. Hootie hoo, shout out to my girl. One of the interesting things about coming of age for me going into my 40s was my eyesight. I used to have great eyesight. I could read the back of a medicine bottle with no problem. Even with glasses on now, I struggle with that. Looking at a computer or looking at my phone, I never had those issues. But then, going to the doctor, got my regular checkups, no issues, no autoimmune diseases, nothing affecting the fact that my eyesight is changing except for my age is what they're telling me. And I'm still arguing with them like, yeah, whatever. But okay, I just think it's the computers. I spend much more time staring at a computer screen during my work day and then outside of my work day, just scrolling for no good damn reason on social media. So I don't know. So yeah. But some of the funny things that happen as you get older, along with struggling with your eyesight, is menopause. You going into that. Some women are already in that perimenopause or premenopause stage, but a lot of people are mentioning men and women just random aches and pains. Somebody said they have a hip injury, and I'm like, well, what happened? He's like, I don't know, but they go to physical therapy for it. So stuff like that. And then of course weight gain. It's harder to lose weight, and it's easier to pack it on. Your body slows down in some respects. It's not as actively burning off those calories. And then of course not giving a mother up. You know what? So that happens as you get older. You stop giving a damn about what other people think about what you think or what you're doing with your life, especially if you are the one taking care of you, right? So there's some very good benefits aside from being alive and well when you're coming of age, maybe in your 50s. One of the other benefits is that, you know, you don't really care what other people think. But all that other stuff, y'all can keep it. But anyway, Miss Trish, you share a birthday with the late, great Michael K. Williams. He did pass away September 6th of, I think it was 2021. Great actor. Miss him so much. He also starred in Lovecraft Country. I talked about that last week. So yeah, so happy birthday to everybody celebrating a birthday this month, this year, the transition to them 50. That's what's up. Last week I was talking about Joe Biden as well, and I was kind of teed off because I did see him at the White House in a photo with the number 45 and was smiling hard. And all I could say is I know how many teeth he got now. And so come to find out that was an AI photo. So I just want to just make a correction with that. Maybe he wasn't cheesing as hard as I thought he was because I didn't like it, but it turned out to be AI. And that's scary, you guys. We live in a weird world right now where we don't know what's real and what's fake. And we really have to dig deep to make that determination because technology is so clean and precise that you struggle to even see with the naked eye what's real and what's fake. Video games, photos, and again, Joe Biden showing all of his teeth with number 45. So I retract some of that. Still, I do think that we can fall back and congratulating potential, what do you want to call them, dictators into the White House. We can fall back from that. I agree. And then I didn't know this. I was talking about the fight last week, and I was triggered by Mike Tyson's opponent with the red cap on, even though it wasn't a MAGA cap. To me, he was sending a signal. But come to find out that also Tyson is a Trump supporter, according to an article that I read. During an appearance on the Ebro in the Morning podcast recently, it was with Ebro Darden and Laura Stiles and Pete Rosenberg. Mike Tyson made it perfectly clear who he'll be voting for in this year's election. And he was quoted as saying, I'm voting for Trump. So what's somebody going to do about it? What you going to do about it? And so what? That's what he said. So he also supported him in 2020. So that's thumbs down to you, Mike Tyson. I'll give you your props for being a great fighter and a knockout artist, but and getting your money on a fake fight, but as a man, yeah, that's not a good look, considering all the things that await us, Black people, under this new presidency. Yes, I wanted to touch on that. And I also want to get into the main discussion, which we will get into, and that's just about family gatherings. I'm just saying family ain't family no more, right? Family gatherings are just not the same. We don't come together like we used to, in my opinion. And, speaking of coming together, getting closer together, I tell y'all most of these shows when I'm speaking that I have braces, so it kind of affects the way that I speak, but they did something recently, again, with the braces. I'm trying to get them close, my teeth close together too. So y'all see them about the closeness, right? But they did something different this time that really is affecting the way that I pronounce words and enunciate words. Shout out to E. Carice. I see you on Facebook. Thank you for joining me, sis. So if I look weird, to me, I feel like my mouth is distorted and that I'm slurring my words. I'm not hungover. No, I'm not. Okay, but so I just wanted to give you guys a little side note if y'all looking at me crazy, like, why can't she say that right? I'm struggling with what's going on. But yeah, so you see I'm all about closeness. That's why I have the braces. You know what I'm saying? I like family closeness. I like the teeth close together, all of that. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, so also, on a sad note, I just want to bring recognition to another fallen Black man by the hands of a police officer, Brandon Durham. 43-year-old Black man was shot and killed by a 26-year-old police officer of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department on November 12th of this year. He had called the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department that night that he was killed. It was in the middle of the night. And he was letting them know that there were intruders, that his windows had been busted out. I don't know if they were shot out or what happened, but intruders were entering the house. He was barricaded in a room with his 15-year-old daughter, begging them to come. Then he knew that the intruders were, inside the house. So this particular officer showed up with other officers he had on his body cam, so we were able to also see this incident. But he came into the residence, saw Mr. Durham in just his boxer shorts, and a woman fully clothed with a hoodie on, a ski mask, black jeans, and she was wielding a knife. He had her arms up to, I'm guessing, in defense of his life. And the officer, Brandon, I'm sorry, not Brandon was the victim actually, but the officer, Bookman, he told him to drop the weapon. He yelled, drop the weapon. And then 2 seconds later, he shot and killed Mr. Brandon Durham. And then once he hit the ground, he shot him additional, I think it was 6 or 8 times. I can't recall. I just remember his daughter saying, what hurts her the most is, aside from the fact that she's now fatherless, is that once they killed him, they continued shooting him while telling him to stay down. So again, this appears to be another crime that should not have happened. We have another criminal on the police force, in my opinion, just based on what I've seen and read. This is awful, and it shouldn't have happened. And so here in Nevada, we do have a elected district attorney prosecutor of Clark County by the name of Stephen Wolfson, who is overseeing this case. And we are asking that he, for one, meet with the family and explain what they can do, tell them what their rights are, and explain to them what they can do moving forward, and also providing constituent services, and issue an arrest for that officer, 26-year-old Bookman. He can be contacted, again, DA Steve Wilson can be contacted at 702-671-0978, or at stephen.wolfson@clarkcountyda.com. Just let your demands be heard. The more people that say something, it will put a fire to the bottoms of those who have the power to oversee and make sure that justice, some form of punishment and justice, is brought forth for this victim. And interesting thing about this particular elected DA prosecutor, Stephen Wolfson, is that his wife is also, I don't know if she's still a judge, but she was a judge proceeding over the O.J. Simpson case, Jackie Glass. And if you guys don't remember, O.J. was acquitted of killing his ex-wife, Nicole Brown, and Ronald Goldman in 1995, which stirred up a lot of mixed feelings. On the Black side, for the most part, we were just happy, not so much at the verdict per se, but at the fact that a Black man wasn't going to be incarcerated, because we know that Black men are incarcerated at a higher rate than any other race, and on top of that, for crimes that they didn't commit, and they get harsher sentences. So that was a celebratory thing for us based on that information. And then on the other side, of course, you have people that felt like that Black man should have been held accountable, guilty or not, I don't know. But again, his wife is Jackie Glass, and she oversaw the case he had after that. So she sentenced O.J. Simpson to 33 years with the eligibility of parole in 9 years for an armed robbery of his own stolen property from a hotel room. So again, for some that brought satisfaction, and to me personally, I think it brought satisfaction to Jackie Glass to be in that position, to be able to sentence a man for a crime that he was acquitted of, and give him that harsh 33-year sentence for trying to get back his stolen property. So with judges like that in seats, it's not a good look, because judges and attorneys are supposed to be blind to justice, meaning you go in unbiased. We all gonna have our thoughts and opinions, but you're trained, you study to read the details of the case, to understand sentencing is based on the severity of the case. And you can't tell me that a man should be locked up for 33 years for whatever he did. I mean, nobody was harmed, but for demanding to get his stuff back. So I just kind of think that she was very biased in that case. I'm always giving her the side eye. And then, of course, we always associate the fact that sometimes the apple don't fall too far from the tree when it comes to loved ones, husbands, spouses, and wives and things. So I'm just saying, Stephen Wolfson is married to Jackie Glass, who gave O.J. 33 years. And I have yet to hear from Stephen Wolfson. Catch me up, because I don't really follow the local news too much, but catch me up if anything has happened different for the death and killing of 43-year-old Brandon Durham, a black man here in Las Vegas, Nevada. Okay, again, contact DA Stephen Wilson. So we are a month closer to the holiday, right? We're getting here. We're getting closer and closer to the holiday. What else I wanted to talk about before then? I wanted to know, are you guys familiar with the cruise? There's a cruise going on. Voyage cruise line is offering people to stay on a cruise ship during the entire 20 the election, the presidency of number 45, who's going to be number 47. And this is per the CEO of Voyage Cruise. He said he came up with the idea before Trump won a second term. He told this to Newsweek that it was a plan for any group dissatisfied with the election results. He insisted that the company had no political preference. But anyway, the cost for the cruise, if you want to be on that ship for 4 years, ranges from $43,000 to $256,000. I guess you can do it yearly, I don't know, monthly or something. But anyways, you can spend up to $256,000 to just stay on this cruise ship and outside of America during this chaos. And hopefully we will only have to experience 4 years of this chaos that's waiting for us. But again, all the food will be included, drinks covered. You'll have Wi-Fi, your medical visits. Travelers will also get to see the world wonders and cultural experiences, such as the Carnival in Rio, and visit the Panama Canal. Yeah, so if you're interested, you can still vote too. You'll also be able to perform your civic duty for the midterms, and then, of course, the 2028 election. It will be, yeah. So you'll still be able to do that. But who's interested? Anybody interested in sitting on a cruise ship? Who can afford that, first of all? And that means, can you work remotely? Like, how many people would actually be able to do that? So this is a rich man's option here, I'll say. But I just thought that was pretty funny and interesting, because I know people do take advantage of it, and people actually do that anyway. They do cruise. They live on ships for a long periods of time, because some people really love cruising. I can't stay on a ship that long. I just can't. And the food gets boring. I need land. Okay. So here, how many of us are celebrating Thanksgiving? How many of us are celebrating Thanksgiving? And how many of us are doing it with our families? You know, not just our immediate family, husbands, wives, kids, but extended family, our parents, cousins, aunties, uncles, all of that. How many of us are doing that? You know, because I think it's a little different. It's a little different now for me, and for a lot of people I know. Growing up, it's just not the same. But you know, around here we call it Family Day, so we still take that day out, set aside that day to make an excuse to be with our family, because a lot of people are off work and a lot of people are, you know, indulging in that tradition. So we do it in our own way. And again, we call it Family Day. And of course, I cook and welcome those who I love and appreciate to my home. And sometimes I do some visiting. I don't get out as much as I used to back in the day because I cook. So it's kind of like I'm tired after the fact. So, and I'm probably gonna have 1 or 2 cocktails and I just want to post up and watch a movie and a game, play cards and just laugh and be amongst my family. But it's a little different now. And I understand why some people, you know, for the reasons that I have, don't probably get out as much, but I think it's a little deeper than that now. But yeah, Thanksgiving is a lot different. Most of the holidays are a lot different, but you know, other states, maybe 17 of them, recognize this day as Indigenous Peoples Day. And that is removed from Thanksgiving Day, which celebrated Christopher Columbus supposedly landing on Plymouth Rock and surviving brutal winters with the natives here in the United States, and breaking bread with them and just celebrating those who did survive. And so we come to find out that that's all a myth, which I like to call revisionist history. And for those who may not understand what revisionist history is, it's basically when people just revise the truth. Like they just put in what they want to put in and make it what they want it to be. And so this was one of those things that we were conditioned to know as being the truth in history, that Christopher Columbus discovered America. Then later we were told, actually he didn't, a black man did that was on a ship, pointed it out. But in reality, Christopher Columbus had never landed to date. During his time of existence, he had never landed on American soil, not in 1940, not in 1492, not ever. So he literally landed in what was known as the Bahamas and later Hispaniola and present day Haiti, or they say it another way, I know. And I say it my colonized tongue way with braces. and the Dominican Republic. So he never set foot here, but we were taught that he actually came to the continent of America, right? We were taught that, like in real life, not on TV. We were taught that in the books, and nobody ever corrected that. I doubt that that's been corrected in any of these textbooks, even if they're even teaching it now. So I don't know, but again, for at least 17 states now, it's recognized as Indigenous Peoples Day. In Nevada, we have no official holiday. Well, no, I'm sorry. Indigenous People Day is the Columbus Day, so I'm mixing them up. So this is still Thanksgiving Day, and again, we have our own personal names. Some people call it Family Day. Some people call it Turkey Day. Some people call it Takes Giving Day, and then we also have the Columbus holiday, which is I'm referencing under Indigenous People Day. So the actual Columbus holiday that took effect in October has been changed in 17 states to Indigenous People Day. And again, in Nevada, there is no official holiday on that date anymore. So it was a federal holiday when it was under Columbus Day in October, but for a lot of states, there's no longer a federal holiday. In some states, there still are. I'll let you guess which ones those are. It's not going to be in a southern state where they're calling it Indigenous People States. I'll say that much. But according to the Smithsonian National Museum of American Indian, approximately 95% of the Native American population was wiped out 133 years after Europeans landed in America. Again, that did not include Christopher Columbus, but again, Europeans landed in America and wiped out 95% of the Native American population. We know about the smallpox, we know about the Trail of Tears, we know about the rape, the slaughter of these people, the stories that aren't told, except when we were watching, even as kids, when we played cowboys and Indians, everybody wanted to be the cowboy, because again, we are being culturally conditioned to look at an innocent, victimized group of people as the bad guy, when actually the bad guy were the people who came over to the continent and stole, raped, did whatever they could, and took over the land. But again, we have been programmed to think that cowboys, these European cowboys, were actually the good guys, and the Native Americans were the bad guys. So even the verbiage calling them Indian, just for the sake of conversation, should be called Native Americans because they are Native American. That's what they prefer to be recognized as. So in 2022, Joe Biden, current president, he did issue a proclamation of Indigenous People Day. But that's it. It's not a federal holiday. And I guess that's based on the states too. It's up to the states. To me, if it was already a federal holiday in, if I'm not mistaken, all states, it should have just transitioned back to that, right? Under a different name. So even though the initial proposal was put forth in 1977 to change that name from Columbus Day to Indigenous People Day, it wasn't until 1990 that South Dakota became the first state to observe Native Americans Day, according to the Pew Research Center. So again, a lot of revisionist history, a lot of people trying to correct error, correct falsehoods, and bring forth the truth. Christopher Columbus, even though we celebrate Thanksgiving supposedly in his name historically, he never landed, his feet never touched the soil of the United States of America. And on his first trip to the Caribbean, which is where he did land, he later returned to Spain and left behind 39 men who were who went ahead and helped themselves, to Native women. Upon his return, the men were all dead, with 1,200 more soldiers at his disposal. Rape and pillaging became rampant as well as tolerated by Columbus. Similar to what happened here to the Africans that were stolen from their land and brought to the United States, right? Sound familiar? Two things in common, even though he was Italian. So just interesting that these European settlers kind of had the same kind of background that some of even our current Senate and Congress members have, and soon to be again president. I'm just saying .com. These are just the facts. So he also, Christopher Columbus, an Italian European man, enslaved Native people for gold. In the Caribbean, he provided Native sex slaves to these men. Again, sounds like some of the people who represent us in Senate and Congress right now, and one that's going to be allegedly our president. Allegedly, he falls under that same category. And they use Native people as dog food. Like they would take the dead and grind it, and yeah. savages. You know what I'm saying? That's why I hate when I hear people even call themselves savages. I know that the whole song, maybe Meg wrote it. I don't know. I don't really listen to her like that. I just familiar with that song, and I knew there was a trend where black women really were going in calling themselves savages. And I'm like, words mean something to me, and you're not gonna be calling me a savage because I can show you a savage. Okay, I can show you a savage. So yeah, Christopher Columbus, he returned to Spain in shackles. Okay, but guess what? He was pardoned. Just saying, you cannot make this up. History repeats itself. And y'all wonder why they want to burn books and take away the history of the United States that includes Africans, that includes the black man and woman, because there's so much you have to tell. It's hard. We're not going for you lying anymore. We are way woke. We see what's going on, and we are going to speak up on it. And so you just say, just throw the whole baby out with the bathwater, because you're not gonna correct your errors. You don't want people to know the truth because you want to continue to do the same stuff that was happening in the 1400s. Damn, this is wild, ain't it? But anyway, yeah. So he was pardoned after a multitude of complaints against Columbus about his mismanagement of the island and his Hispaniola. A royal commissioner arrested Columbus in the 1500s and brought him back to Spain in chains. And though he was stripped of his governor title, he was pardoned by the King Ferdinand, who then subsidized. Subsidized. I'm sorry. Who then subsidized a fourth voyage. Yeah. And at the same time, with all of this conditioning that we have going on, we can't even have a black Santa Claus. God forbid, we say Jesus is black. There's a story in 1969 that black people, with all of this conditioning, because we've been conditioning to see black is bad and white is good, and just this whole setup that we've been conditioned with, which makes sense considering how we got here and who our forefathers were and the education we received. Why would they teach us anything to make us feel proud of who we are and have some level of pride of who we are? So we did all of this conditioning where even black people did a brown paper bag rule back in the day, where if you wanted to enter a club, they would put a brown paper bag up. Another black person would put a brown paper bag up to another black person. And if you were darker than that brown paper bag, that black person would deny you from entering that club. Another black person did this to another black person. So that just lets you know how systemically conditioned we are here in the United States. But in 1969, there were stories that black people even threatened to cancel Ebony because they put a black Jesus on the cover. So it's like, me even having this conversation makes some people uncomfortable because we're talking about race, right? We're talking about freedom, justice, and equality, social justice, police brutality, all of the things that are the fabric of this country that stems from another continent in Europe that has spread all over the globe, all over the world, which now makes it a pandemic, right? It's not just an epidemic here in the United States, it's everywhere. But somebody like me would be considered, I don't know, racist in my own right, which is not true. But I'm talking about the truth. And this stuff needs to be talked about, because if you don't know where you've been, how are you going to know where you're going, where you come from? You just going to let people lie to you and just tell you what they want you to believe? So that's something to consider. But I'll go back to a quote that the late, great Mr. Joe Madison would say. He said, in America, we are culturally conditioned to believe white is superior and black is inferior. And the manifestation of this is that black people are undervalued, underestimated, and marginalized. So you guys just tell me, where's a lie? Where is the lie? People, you think about all of the support that this up and coming president got, and you have conversations with these people who supported him, and you can actually see the commonality that these people are literally seriously poorly educated. They're ignorant as hell, and they bought into the lies. They have not done the knowledge for themselves. They don't even want to hear the truth. Their minds have been hacked, and they have been conditioned to believe something. And it has built up a level of hate in them that is so bad that they would rather not have the very things that they need, like healthcare, affordable healthcare, good paying jobs, good education, all of the things we all want and need. They would really give that up just to hate us, people who have done absolutely nothing to us. Look at history. History teaches you what about Africans doing what to Europeans? What did we do besides defend ourselves? But here's a fun fact, you guys. There are more people addicted to Trump, number 45, I'm trying not to say his name, There are more people addicted to number 45 than there are people addicted to crack in the US. I'm gonna sip my tea on that. Mhm. Yes, indeed. So there were what, nearly 78 million and counting people who voted for number 45. 78. There are 8.6 million Americans reported having used crack. 8.6. 78 million voted for number 45. 8.6 million Americans reported having used crack. Nearly 50 million experienced a substance abuse disorder in the past year. So if you combine all of the substance abuse disorders, um, pills, alcohol, I mean, other drugs, just put them all in one pot, it still doesn't equate to the number of people who voted for this man to be president. So it's really, really weird, y'all. And it just makes me reflect on things, because one of the big issues that I have with knowing that this man again is going to be the president, is one of my biggest fears is that we will fall upon another pandemic. And that is one of the things that scares me the most, because I've said this over and over again, that I lost people near and dear to me under his leadership, under his lack of leadership. And I'm very fearful of something like that happening again. This man does not take, you see who he's appointing. He appoints people that lack any education in any of the jobs that they're signing up for. But at the same time, you're dogging out diversity, equity, and inclusion. You're dogging out qualified people who are only making demands to have their application looked at and reviewed and considered, which is what we have to implement, force people to do in order to be able to work and earn a living. But at the same time, you're putting people in these positions who have no education, no expertise, and he doesn't listen to the experts. He dogged out the leader of the CDC. He dogged out anybody that went against what he believed. Even if he was taking some of their precautions, getting the vaccine, he had everybody mixed up about it, right? So one of my biggest fears with having number 45 become number 47 and being under his leadership is another pandemic. And so that triggered me to go look at the epidemics that we've experienced under different presidencies, Democrat or Republican, and the effects of them. And one of them, again, was the crack epidemic. Y'all remember that, right? So that came out when we did the war on drugs, when they literally brought cocaine here, dropped it off in the hood, and then started locking people up. Like, that's how it had happened. That was in 1971 under a Republican president, Richard Nixon. Crack is still around. It's still an epidemic. Families are still being torn apart. People still can't shake it. You know what I'm saying? And that's worse. To me, crack is like The Walking Dead. People that get on that, they just turn into something special. Like, it's just weird, like what crack cocaine can do to you. You compare it to certain other drugs. So that epidemic started here in the United States of America, has spread over to other countries. You got, I don't know. There are some people, it's new. In some states here and abroad, crack is becoming an epidemic where it was not an epidemic, and it's affecting white people even more. But that was one of the epidemics that came and has not left, and that was under a Republican administration. And I wonder how it got here. We already talked about that briefly, but y'all can go do the whole, history of it. There's so many documentaries and all that out there. Also, COVID. COVID was presented itself under a Republican administration under number 45, right? Now we know, like, we during our time, we were touched with we got a scare with Ebola, anthrax, even monkeypox. But under a Democratic administration, where some of these scares, health scares came into effect, it was a black man by the name of Barack Hussein Obama. And, sadly, maybe a handful of people succumbed to Ebola or anthrax, but not hundreds, maybe not thousands, and of course not millions, definitely not multi-millions. And it didn't become a global pandemic. Okay, so I'm just having y'all do the knowledge for those of us critical thinkers who really think things through, and they don't just gang bang, just pick a side, blood or cuz. Like, they really are objective in their thought process and understand what benefits us by choosing a side based on the options we have. Because everybody got choices. Shout out to E40. But yeah, so Ebola, I think that came out back in 1976 under the Jimmy Carter administration. Do we have any historical information that said that people dropped dead in the hundreds, thousands of millions? No. Again, anthrax. Now that did linger around for a while, but that was under George W. Bush, and he had everything to do with that. That's another whole another story, 9/11, blah, 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 blah. But again, it wasn't as bad as the crack epidemic, wasn't as bad as the COVID pandemic. But AIDS, y'all remember AIDS? It's still here, isn't it? It's still here. It never went anywhere. So AIDS came about under a Republican Reagan administration, and it has not left. So when you think about the serious epidemics, some turned into pandemics, because epidemics are just locally, which is within the states. Pandemics means it's worldwide. You can see that Republicans lack the leadership skills to be able to save lives in abundance. Okay, because yeah, people still dying from AIDS in the thousands, maybe the millions. I haven't done the research recently, so I can't confirm. Um, yeah, so that's what it is. So, and then at the same time, you have reps who plan to allow big billionaire tax cuts not to expire. Instead, they'll just cut welfare. And remember, Vice President Kamala Harris proposed to uh, not to expire that billionaire tax cut bill in order to use those funding that they were given to billionaires. That's rich people welfare. I mean, you give it a different call a rose by another name, basically. So you give it a different name, and now it's just corporate tax cuts. No, it's welfare. It's welfare. It is. We just call it something different, so it sounds a little bit more sophisticated. You know how we call fish eggs caviar. Now it sounds real French. Like the fuck? What does that mean? It's still fish eggs. It's still welfare. So instead of letting the billionaire tax cut expire, they're going to keep it and then cut other things that help the masses, like welfare. You know, getting Medicaid, getting cash subsidies, healthcare, Affordable Care Act. They're going to take away from that. And remember the lady that almost 78 million people didn't vote for, and the other bunches of millions of people, 80 million people who didn't vote at all. Y'all allowed this to happen. So that's going to expire. And then those people, the poor, will be affected. And yeah, so a lot's going to be happening. And I don't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about the new administration because, again, I am a Black woman and I am focusing on self-care. But I do want to keep y'all ear to the street and just let you know what's at stake in some respects. And shout out to getting a lot of the Supreme Court justices in while we still have a Democratic president. And shout out to the 2 Republican senators who sat out so that those votes could pass to get those Supreme Court justices in local states and separate in different states into those seats before shit hits the fan. Okay. Yeah, it's a lot going on. I also was watching something on talking about the CDC. I, encourage you all to get your news from places like C-SPAN. There's a lot of foreign news stations you can watch. If you want to just get raw, informative information, C-SPAN is, there's no editing. You just hear what you hear. So I love that. And so I was watching it the other day, and the director of the CDC was there. One of the top members of the FDA were there. And it was just interesting listening to it. And I got to go back and watch the whole thing because I think it was like 4 or 5 hours long. But it was a summit, and it was called Watching the Future of the Health Summit on C-SPAN 2. And the director of the CDC was talking about the innovative ways that they're trying to implement and to proactively monitor and maintain the safety of our water and drug overdosing and suicide prevention, as well as other diseases such as the COVID and flu. Now, we know if they're doing this now, they're probably really scrambling to do as much as they can before shit changes, because a lot of people are going to start and have been resigning from these top positions because they know what's coming next, right? And so thank God for the people who are doing, I would say, God's work by trying to protect us in advance, because y'all, it don't feel like it now. A lot of people say, oh, now that we have a new president elect, what's the big deal? He's not actually in that seat yet. He hasn't started really doing the damage. He's making his moves. This is chess, baby. Y'all got to pay attention. Okay. The strategy is there, but we know we have a lot at risk under this presidency, not just because he's the president, but because of some of the people who will be in positions that he'll be lining them up to be in to push through Project 2025 and just make the divide greater, which we've heard rumored that there won't be a middle class in the coming years here in the United States of America. There'll only be a wealthy, and then there will be a poor. And so some of the things that they're implemented are making this possible. But I like the fact that the director of the CDC said they're also working on, cracking down on preventative methods for people who are overdosing. So there's been a high, as we know, a high rate of fentanyl overdoses. And so they're coming up with some formula. I don't know if it's in effect yet, but it's basically some type of fentanyl strip that can be created to detect if the drug is laced. So for those of you who like street drugs, there'll be some type of product you can put on it before you ingest to make sure there's no fentanyl in it so that you don't end up overdosing. So I thought that was nice too. I think that's great. And that they were looking for more research in which pertains to drowning. They said there's a high rate of drowning of children between the ages of 2 and 5 in accidental death preventions, and that's for people 50 and up. And I'm clumsy, so I don't know what they're going to do about that. I just have to teach myself to just take my time and pay attention. But anyway, I'm just happy for that. And the FDA, one of the top officers of the FDA, I like what he was talking about. He said he had concerns for money put into healthy foods. He said people think that the FDA focuses majority on production of the food and overseeing the quality of the food and making sure that it meets certain standards. But he said, no, the majority of the money goes into other things, inspections on other things. It didn't go into inspections of food in general. So he wanted to see more money put into that. And, you go to places like Canada, they eat the same kind of Skittles and Doritos and things that we eat, but they don't allow certain dyes to be put into the food. Here, the FDA does allow that. And why? Why can't we just use sweet potatoes for color? And, it just, why are y'all so money hungry? I understand this is a capitalistic society and there's nothing wrong with that, except that it's not at the demise of the people. Like, you taking the people out in order to get what you need in here. And how much money can you bring truck following you to the graveyard? What are you doing? And I understand it's generational wealth thing, but this is ill-gotten goods at this point. If you're poisoning people, it's like a cycle. Like, they just continue this. And, places like Canada, maybe they're so tough on, inspections as far as food and the wealth and healthness, the health and wellness of the people, because they have universal health care. We are like the only developed country, if I'm not mistaken, that doesn't provide universal health care. Like, we really fighting for that? And y'all don't think they're going to try to take that away by way of transgenders? Because now all they got to do is say, well, we need to open up this Affordable Care Act, and we need to make some amendments and make sure transgenders aren't getting certain benefits under, the Affordable Care Act. And next thing you know, you don't have an Affordable Care Act for less than 0.01%, by way of 0.01% of people that aren't really affecting us per se. But that's how they play us. They make us, be scared of something. And then we like, yeah, go in there and fix our medical benefits, fix that, take that out. Yeah, they're going to take your stuff out too. Not just they stuff, the trans people stuff. It's going to be all our stuff. And we're going to be stuck. They just tried that, under a Trump administration previously. And shout out to the late John McCain, who did one good deed before he checked out by giving that last one vote as a Republican senator to make sure that the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, was still here for the people. So I like that. So anyway, that was a C-SPAN, my nerd moment. And I have my action items too. I think there should be a higher standards for food production in Canada. Like I said, they have it in effect, and mainly because they're protecting their interests, as they have to pay for everybody's health care. The fish rots from the head. So if you want people to be well, if you're concerned about people catching cancer and all these things, stop putting cancerous shit in the food. That's all I'm saying.com. And I also think that there should be fair studies on the effectiveness of medical based on race, ethnicity, and poverty levels. All of that plays into it. Your environment plays into how you will be affected. It's not just the fact that you're a human being. I always go back to the example years ago, well over 10 years ago. I remember I had a coworker who, she was just distraught because her husband was struggling because he had taken Viagra, and the dose they gave him was so strong that he struggled with an erection for a very long time. It was very overwhelming for them. And come to find out, there's different dosages of Viagra provided based on your race. So they gave him a white man's dose. So apparently white men need a higher dosage of Viagra. So studies need to be done on how white people are affected by drugs and medicine, how black people are affected by drugs and medicine, based on environment, based on all kinds of things, because all those things influence and affect us and all other races, right? So I think there should be more focus on that too, and access to quality health care and prevention. When we go to the doctor, I think the first thing a doctor should do is do an allergy test, give us a whole full physical, do our chart. We shouldn't have to go in and say, my left arm been hurting for 2 months. When you go see your doctor for the first time, it should be mandatory. Hell, if you want to go get life insurance, it's mandatory that you get a physical and blase, blase. They want to make sure that you healthy. But when you go to a doctor, they don't care. They just want you to come in one by one. If you feel in a way, like, no, when you show up to that doctor's office on your initial visit, it should be mandatory that you get an allergy testing and you get your full physical. So the doctor will say, this is what we're up against. And then you can start talking to them and associating your symptoms with whatever diagnosis they come back with, so that's one thing. And then also, affordable treatment, because some people would get their teeth pulled. Some people would get dental work done that needs to be done, because if you don't know, having rotting teeth in your mouth hardens your arteries and creates heart disease. So you might be walking around looking good, but your body is dying because you have an infection in your body, because you have infection in your mouth. And some people are just taking pills just to curb the pain, but at the same time, you're killing yourself, because that's where your high blood pressure is coming from and your heart disease is coming from, because of your mouth. So going to the dentist, people can't afford these copays, even if you have insurance. And there are some, subsidies in effect, but make it affordable. Make it so that people can get the proper treatment that they need, and stop being greedy devils out here, just trying to get all the money, all you insurance companies and people who take money from lobbyists just to gouge people. And so I appreciated that. But shout out to one of the panelists, Cody Kinsley of North Carolina. I want to say, I don't know, he's a Human and Health Services Secretary. That's who he is. And he was bragging about the fact that he got Medicaid expanded in his state. And again, that's North Carolina. And he was quoted saying, stop looking at it as a handout and more of a springboard. Damn it. Like, we are your constituents. Don't you care about us? Don't you care about us? Yeah. I care about you guys, and I care about family, and I care about the closeness of family. I care about the unity of family. I care about carrying on traditions. There's a song I want to hear. I think it's off the Hip Hop Is Dead album, Nas, and there's a hook. It says, "Carry on tradition, carry on tradition." And I just like that, and that song comes into my head. That particular hook, when I think about family, like, we have to carry on tradition. Some of that stuff we can leave behind if it's bad, but for the most part, we need to know who our family is. Like, let me ask you guys, like, growing up, did y'all all pile up in the living room with your cousins and sleep on your granny's floor with your blanket? Like, did you identify with your cousins as brothers and sisters more so than cousins because y'all were so close? Did y'all do everything together, stay outside until the street lights came on? Because, if you went in the house, you was gonna have to stay in the house and clean up. Like, back in the day, I think we bonded more. I just know, even to this day, I have the greatest relationships with cousins because we spent a lot of time together as kids. And I see that so different now. I kind of even relate. The Black family is being more transitioning into what the white family is. Like, growing up, I didn't see white families bonding as tight as we are as a Black people. And so, they only did family dinners with their immediate family, mother, father, sister, brother. Or I don't even know so much. I never hear a white person say they're going to their family reunion. I know they do them. I mean, I'm not saying they don't. If you white and you have a family reunion regularly, let me know. But I just never have heard a white person say that. So correct me. There was so many traditions that we've had as kids that we evolved into adults with, have shaped and molded our families and made us what we are today. And now when I look back, I'm just like, it's so different now. It's so different. On one side of my family, we never really had family reunions, but we had the extended family from cousins, aunties, and uncles. Like, it started with my grandmother and her kids, and then it went into, a lot of people started passing away, so that shrunk and fell off. And then a lot of things happened. There's deaths, there's drugs, there's all kind of things that took away those bonds, made it harder to come together, right? And so we kind of lost some of the unity, but even with the immediate family, I see a shift. Then I have another side of the family, which every 2 years on both sides of the family, paternal and maternal, they're the family reunion. When we come together, we deep. When it's a birthday party, if it's a Super Bowl party, if it's a holiday, we come together not just for funerals. We find any excuse to be amongst each other. And then I have another side where we had traditions where we gather at my grandmother's house. On Thanksgiving is where we exchanged. We did a Secret Santa where we exchanged gifts, and that was our time to be. And that was mainly as me being a youth during that time. But we don't even do that anymore. Things have changed so much. I mean, I remember growing up where I never had to call before I went to one of my grandparents' house or my mom's house. Like, I don't remember that. Like nowadays, how many people are calling before they show up at their grandmother's house, their grandfather's house, their mom's house, dad's house? Like back in the day, you just pulled up. Like it wasn't even a second thought. We just pulled up. The door was always unlocked. I still remember my grandparents' phone numbers, even though they don't have them anymore. One's still living, so I remember hers as well. But it was just so different, and everything was centered around the grandparents' house. So whenever there was a family dinner, even family meetings, we came to Granny's house. We came to our grandmother's house, and there was always a central place for us to go to. And I look now and I'm like, do we still have that? And I want you guys to chime in too and let me know. Do you have a central place? Is there a matriarch in your family? Do you guys all know there's the one house you can go to, if it's something happening, celebration party, or even something bad, where you all know where to go to? Do we still have that in these days and time? I mean, we have so many traditions that I think we've lost just over time. And I'm wondering why. And I'd like for you guys to add to the conversation and give your perspective, what you think has changed, if something has changed. I'm speaking from my perspective, from my lived experience, and from a lot of other people, because I was even having discussions with people, and we had so much in common, not even being family. When I talked about how we could just pull up to Granny's house, and they were like, yeah, and then we all slept on the floor, as cousins. And just so many different things we had in common because that's how we grew up. And they were saying, yeah, but we're different now. Like our kids don't even know each other, so they have kids and now they mad at one of the uncles. So if you mad at uncle, then you're not coming around. So of course you're not bringing your kids around, and you're not teaching them to still engage with the rest of their family. So everybody's living in their own little silos now. There's no bonding, and that bonding is necessary. Because I even tell my son that, and he's in his 30s, come to the family gatherings when we do get together. That's the one time you need to be present. You ain't have to come by every weekend and hang out with people you don't want to hang out with. But when we're having something where we're all uniting, be it a holiday, be it a birthday celebration, be it just, a game night, come, because you want to be acquainted with your family. You need to know who your family is. You need to have those bonds. And family reunions are so important because you need to know people that you probably don't talk to on a regular basis. You need to know that so-and-so's auntie's nephew's son, and they live in another state. So what if you move out of state? What if you get caught up in a sundown town? If y'all don't know what a sundown town is, it's them little rural areas where if you run out of gas, just push the car through. Don't stop and get gas, because it's a lot of racist people that would love to have you as their victim, as a Black man, woman, or child. But you just passing through another state, and you might say, hey, I got a cousin that lives in California. Oh, I got an auntie down south. I got a great cousin that lived in Texas. Like, you need to know these things. And I think we just got so far away from that when I think about culture. And I know it was much more respected and deeper back when we were, after we were free, after the 13th Amendment was eradicated, or not eradicated, but amended. So it allowed us to be free. And, family reunions were born here on the continent of Africa. Africa. Lord, I'm thinking about my African people, but family reunions were born here in the United States because this was a time prior when people had been snatched away from their land, brought to this continent, and separated from their families. So when we came here, people owned us, and they would have auctions, and they would separate husbands and wives, children from their parents, and everybody just went separate. So nobody had any connections. But once we were freed under the 13th Amendment, there was a connection. And so what did they do? It was in the spirit of a family reunion. I think that's one of the ways that it was born here in the United States, as far as our culture here as Black men and women. And when Black people started to go out and put up newspapers, articles, postings, just word of mouth, I'm so and so, I'm Jackson, because we took on the names of, those who enslaved us. And not so much, we didn't just take on those names because we had a love of the slave owner, of those who enslaved us. We took on those names because people would remember us by that. That's the Jacksons. That's the Browns. That's the whatever your name was, your government name here in the United States, because you were labeled by the last name of the person who owned you. And so that was a way of keeping a connection, right? So those names followed us not because we love the slave master so much, but mostly and mainly because we were trying to stay connected. And so if people were looking for us, they would know, last time I saw my son, he was traded to the Smiths. And so I'm looking for my son, Bobby Smith. And so that's, why we carried those names and didn't let go of those names over time. And we would reunite. That's how we reunited. And we got together and we knew our bloodline. We got to share stories and build memories and bonds. And to me, it's so different now. It is so different. But I just remember how important it was. And grandmothers, even in the African culture before coming here, the traditions in Africa were, honoring, one of the top traditions, as we do here in the United States, and most people of color, we honor our elders, our grandparents, those who came before us. We give them honor and respect, especially authority figures in our family, right? The family relationships, we respect them, extended, and then just we care. It's part of our African culture to care for the environment. I remember, we growing our own food and just not living in gluttony, not not in abundance, just having what we need and being able to maintain. Like so many tribal traditions that we still do here. We call it something different now, like dance. Back in Africa, it was dancing. We painted our bodies, piercings, rituals, healing and prosperity. Some of those things, like, do we still get those traditions from our grandmothers? The healing aspect of it. One of the things when I was talking to a guy and I was telling him we were going to be talking about family and how it's so different now from when we grew up. And he was saying, yeah, I remember anytime my grandma always giving me medicine. I said, me too. My grandmother, my maternal grandmother, my mother's mom, you don't tell her you had a headache, a stomach ache, and you was sleepy tired. You was getting some castor oil. And I've been a protester since day one. I protested. No, 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 no. I did not like the taste of it, so I did not want it. But she would accommodate me and she would squeeze a little lemon juice in it. But he was telling me his grandmother was the same way. And I said, you remember Father John? Y'all remember that? I don't know, was it cod liver oil? I would do the Father John because it was sweet. But that castor oil, we got castor oil for everything. Like just certain traditions, like the simplest things, we were able to survive. We would call our grandmothers to help heal our babies. And when we needed a recipe, I remember when I first moved out on my own, I wanted to perfect gravy, and I got so frustrated when I couldn't. But when I did, I'm a pro now. Like I would call my grandmother, just certain recipes. Are we still doing that? Our grandmother's still passing down traditions, and I understand it. Just like with family, we have to weed out some of the bad, right? We have, I'm not saying we should stick by sexual abusers. I'm not saying we should stick by people where we got to hide our kids, hide our wives, hide our liquor. If it's going to be a negative situation to where it's going to be all bad, then no, I'm not saying we should stick together regardless. Some people you do have to omit, but sometimes I think we just go too far with it, and then we just make excuses and we get lazy and we don't want to do the work. But look at everything that we're losing. Our kids don't know each other. They don't get to have those bonds. We're allies. Look, I had a dream the other night that I was getting jumped, and I had to call my cousins to come help me. It was a corny joke, but I'm just saying, like, I know I could pick up the phone and call my cousins. Are my nieces and nephews are going to be able to do the same thing? Not having those bonds that we had, like, is somebody going to be able to fight for them? Now, I know we can go pick and choose our friends because I have people in my life that we tight, and I picked them. They wasn't born into the family. They're not a cousin. They're not my auntie's son or daughter. It's somebody I just met along the way, picked them up and planted them into my family. And those are usually the best people, right? But family is still important for so many reasons. If you think about the fact that with family, You need to know who your family, so you don't be having babies with somebody that y'all share the same bloodline, and then be wondering why your kid have whatever issues they may have. You know what I'm saying? We think that some of this stuff is just coming through our food. No, it's coming through our, it's coming, like, yeah, I'm trying to be not so, yeah, it's coming through and through relations. Okay. How about that? Through relations and with people that we share a bloodline with. And it's important that we, stay connected. So even during like celebrating Family Day and just coming together, like, again, talking to people, and they're saying we just do our own little thing because we don't talk to so and so, and this person is having issues with this person, and it's just so much. And then I think about the fact that it's not going to get any better. I mean, somebody can tell me in the chat, do you see any optimism in the family unit being tighter? I think it's been broken down systemically. um, I think that the powers that be had a lot to do with the breakdown of the family structure. A lot of people would like to blame it on the separation of the husband and wife, the black family. And they talk about all kind of things, in the height of the civil rights movement in 1965. A quarter of the black families with children were headed by women. And today, virtually half of black families are headed by single women. And 55% of black babies are born to unmarried mothers. So you'll hear that conversation that, oh, families aren't together because the nucleus, which is the man and the woman, have separated. So more statistics from 1890 to 1950, black women had higher marriage rates than white women, I'm sorry. And in 1950, just 9% of black children lived without their father. By 1960, the black marriage rate had declined, but remained close to the white marriage rate. So one contributor to the family breakdown is, I think, which is soon to spread to the poor and the working class white family, something that we're experiencing as a black family, because family is a tradition of the African culture. Some stuff is just in our DNA. Like I said, I didn't really see the closeness of white families. And again, if you're a white person, you can speak for yourself, but I'm just talking about my lived experience, was from welfare expansion. So, there's been studies that say that, a lot of the spread of the poor working class unity may have been associated with welfare expansion. And it also, they tried to attach that to black families as well. So, there was a cash welfare it was in a meager form. It existed around 1935, and some of the welfare expansion took place during the Kennedy administration. But under the Johnson's Great Societies, which what it was called prior to welfare, which began in 1964, benefits became substantially more generous and came under great control of the federal government. But the thing about welfare, a lot of people will go back to the fact that once the black families started getting welfare, the stipulations were put into place that excluded the black men from being in the house. And so, you know, I don't know if that is where we should start the story. You guys tell me if, breaking up the nucleus of the man and woman in the house was the beginning of what we're seeing now, less unity in the family. There was a Harvard, Paul Peterson, he was heard quoting, I guess he's a Harvard professor, some programs actively discourage marriage because welfare assistance went to mothers so long as no male was boarding in the household. Marriage to an employed male, even one earning a minimum wage, placed a risk of a mother's economic well-being. And it's called, the infamous term for that was called man in the house. Like, I remember growing up and just knowing that if you were having Section 8 on welfare, that a social worker could just pop up at your house and make sure it wasn't no men's clothing in your closet. Who does that? Why would you be so evil to divide a family? You punish people for being poor, so you intentionally want to break up the family because you don't want them to be able to survive together. Like, wouldn't that be your intentions? But then you have these probably 2025 people that want to just make it that you have to be married again, and that it's going to be very difficult to be divorced. But are you going to be able to still get subsidies under that? And remember, these subsidies aren't coming out of these senators and these congressmen and these heritage foundations pockets. These are tax dollars. This is money that's being taken out of your check from working. This is money that is being taken out of your cost for bubble gum and cigarettes or whatever when you buy a car. These are taxes that are brought from the American people. So we should have a say on who these funds should be allocated to. We're bailing out corporations with our tax dollars, but you're mad about people having welfare, and then you want to punish people who are poor and married and trying to maintain their family, but are struggling financially, especially Black men and women, because we know the struggle is real when we have to actually implement things like affirmative action and DEI in order to even be a part of the work environment. You know, it's crazy. It's really crazy. They said it's estimated that in 1975, a household head would have to earn 20,000 a year to have more resources than that could be obtained from a Great Society programs. And again, Great Society programs is the same term we use for welfare today. In today's dollars, that's over 90,000 per year in earnings. So majority of Americans who receive subsidies such as welfare and Social Security and Medicaid are whites. Did y'all know that? Like Black people get blamed for everything, right? Like, why are we always in it? Why are we always in it? You know, we had Reagan talking about the welfare queen. Like, we talk about poverty and violence, we always associate it with Black people. When we talk about gun violence, they want to gear right in on Chicago. But one of the most violent states in the United States is Alaska, Anchorage, Alaska, to be exact. But I've not yet to hear any person in a position of a public forum on a news station mention any of the crimes and violence that happens in Alaska. And even though they're in the top 10, in the top 5, and Chicago's not. But you hear a lot about Chicago. But again, it's the same for welfare and Medicaid. I mean, it makes sense considering that the population amongst white people is greater. But for these people who are biting off their nose to spite their face, they're going to feel the pressure when this new administration has their way. They think, again, being the majority, collecting subsidies, welfare, Social Security, Medicaid, as a white man and woman, your kids are going to suffer. So are your teeth. So using research from the Urban Institute, this is data that was gathered from 59 million people. It shows that welfare recipients in 2019, the recipients were 43% white. The welfare recipients in 2019 were 26% Hispanic and 23% were Black. Again, white people were at 43%. Recipients of welfare, Hispanic 26 and Black 23. We are not the poorest. Okay, we're not the poorest. We thrive through it all. And there was a time when Black people couldn't even get welfare. Like, damn, can you imagine being poor and not even being able to benefit? Again, even if you weren't having money taken out of your check, because there was a time where Black people couldn't get like real jobs where they had, income tax and where they take the medical and Social Security withdrawals from your check. They had to do more domestic job and got paid like for cash, kind of like a lot of how undocumented people are here now in the United States. But food stamps originated in 1939. Here's the thing: under a Franklin D. Roosevelt administration, food stamps came into effect in order to strengthen up the U.S. military, who was going into World War II in 1941. So they actually invented, I'll say, for lack of a better term, food stamps for the military, the white poor class. Okay, Black people did not benefit from food stamps or any other subsidies that were provided. So in September of 1939, with both Britain and France declared war on the Nazi Germany following its invasion of Poland, the United States remained neutral. But until 1941, when it entered the war after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, that's when they got involved. Okay. So it just amazes me how they always use the Black face when it comes to these subsidies and welfare and Medicaid, but it was actually invented for white people. The only thing that, I can say that came into effect to benefit, not necessarily benefit Black people, but in the name of Black people, was life insurance. So these rich white men, if one of us got sick and died as an enslaved African, they lost money. You know what I'm saying? They lost income. They lost money. And so life insurance was invented so that when one of us enslaved Africans died, that rich, wealthy white man did not go without a payout. So that's the only thing that came out under our name, but not to benefit us. It was to benefit those who, in fact, were had stolen us and forced us to work without pay, raped and did some very awful things to us for generations. Um, so I just think that's there was, remember the story about the what was that, under the Reagan administration? It was a welfare queen, and it was there was a woman in Chicago, and she was quoted. They talked about her. There's this woman in Chicago, and she has 80 names and 30 addresses and 12 social security cards, and is collecting veterans benefits on 4 non-existent deceased husbands. She's got Medicaid, is getting food stamps and welfare under each of her names, and her tax-free cash income alone is over 150,000. This was back under the Reagan administration. This was the face of why welfare needed to be amended in some way, where people weren't getting the subsidies they needed because this one black woman, and look, one black woman had 80 names and 30 addresses, 12 social security cards, and collecting veterans. I need to go back into these government jobs and understand, even, just for kicks and giggles, if this was a true story, which we know it's not. It's just they can say whatever they want to say, and people believe anything negative about black people, right? But just for kicks and giggles, if this was a true story, I'm mad at the people that work at the Social Security office. Y'all not doing y'all job too great. I'm mad at the people who gave her 80 names, allowed her to register 80 names. Yeah, I don't think y'all should be in them jobs. I'm just saying, something ain't right about that. And 30 addresses, like how you live in 30 places? I bet you Bill Gates don't have 30 addresses. I'm just saying. So y'all be mad at the wrong people. Y'all be focused on the wrong thing. It's just like when you get mad about undocumented people taking your job. Like, shouldn't you be mad at the person who's hiring them? Like, you in real life mad at somebody working? He didn't break in your house and steal your TV and sell it. He literally went to a job that should be paying $40 an hour and is getting paid $8. And you mad at him because you can't get the job because you're not going to accept $8 an hour. But you mad at him. You're not mad at the person who hired him. Okay, whatever. So just to give you a little back history on this whole food stamp welfare stuff, just so y'all understand why black people are always in it. Again, we're only 23% of the makeup of subsidies, where white men and women are 43% and are voting against their interests at high rates. Remember, it was President Barack Obama who made it so that rural areas could have Wi-Fi and have a cell phone. Like, he understood that the world was transitioning from landlines, and that poor people in rural areas were going to be left behind. And instead of leaving them behind with their ignorant asses, he implemented laws that would protect them. And we call that an Obama phone. We call that the Obama phone. And then again, having Wi-Fi in rural areas, that was mandatory so that people who were trying to get an education, who couldn't travel miles and miles to a public school, could be educated from home. Okay. And look, he was so proactive. So when COVID came about, how many people benefit in those rural areas with Wi-Fi and having an Obama phone? Okay. I'm just saying. Anyway, just a little history. And again, we are talking about family unity, and I'm just kind of just trying to bring it all together because a lot of talk has been talked about the separation of family happened under just subsidies being given, breaking up the black family by way of welfare. Giving you the statistics, do you still believe that? I think it has a lot more to do with emotional things, and we're going to talk about that too. But let me just get this history in here because I did a lot of research and I want to share it with y'all. I think it's quite interesting. So it was in 1935, the Social Security Act, introduced by, again, Franklin Roosevelt, the Franklin Roosevelt administration, that first committed the U.S. to the safety net philosophy. From the beginning, it had 2 tiers that intended to protect families from loss of income. So again, this happened in 1935. And again, this was a preempt to, we know 1941 was World War II. There was poor white men who were going to go in and fight, and they weren't eating enough. They were scrawny. They needed food, so they got them food stamps. Black people weren't getting food stamps in. It was poor white men and their families. So the first tier was social insurance programs called Social Security, and these benefits went to families in the event of their workers' death, more than likely the father passing, incapacitation, disability, and retirement of older Americans. So that was the first tier. In the second tier, which was really originally called the Aid to Dependent Children program, was subsequently renamed the Aid to Families with Dependent Children in the 1962 Public Welfare Amendments to the SSA under the Kennedy administration, acronyms or whatnot. So you had the first tier and the second tier. So originally, Black people, again, were systemically omitted from programs such as Social Security and Aid to Families with Dependent Children due to, one, with Social Security, it was racial discrimination. Because in the decades between the 1930s and 40s, during these decades, Blacks typically had menial jobs, meaning they had domestic jobs. And I'm not going to say that I believe that they were menial, because obviously they're necessary. But they had domestic jobs. And again, they were getting paid under the table. They didn't have a record of their income to be able to extract and place the fundings into this Social Security pot. So there was no record of what they could or could not afford, because it wasn't on paper, right? Similar to a lot of undocumented people here in the United States today. It wasn't tied to a formal workforce. Again, it was off the books. So they were ineligible. They had no record of income. They were ineligible of social insurance. That's just like security programs. You can't go somewhere and ask for subsidies without being able to show proof of income, in some ways. So same thing. So that was that for the Social Security. And then welfare. So that was an extension of the state operated mothers pensions programs, where white widows were the primary beneficiaries. Okay. And so the criteria for eligibility for welfare and then were state determined. So Blacks continue to be barred from full participation because the country operated under separate but equal, a doctrine adopted by the Supreme Court in 1896. So again, states had the right, we hear a lot about states' rights right now, to deny, yeah, remember, we didn't have civil rights. So they had the right to deny poor Black families from having welfare. And so when they were able to benefit, and in some cases, there was a great migration, right? Families travel. I know my family in particular, my maternal family, my grandfather came here from the South, my grandmother, Louisiana. Even on my paternal side, it's Arkansas. So my grandparents came here from the South. I am the third generation here. So with my grandparents and my parents, and then me. So I'm the second generation born here. My grandparents migrated from the South on both sides. But when we started to migrate because of work from the South to mostly to the Midwest, some of us came all the way west, which were my grandparents. They had to start shifting and weaving, you know what I'm saying? Because now we're making money. We are on paper, right? And so in the 1950s and 1960s, to bar Blacks from migrating from the South to qualify for the program, required welfare workers to make unannounced visits to determine if fathers were living in the home. And we talked about that, right? And if evidence of the mail was found in these cases were closed, the welfare checks were discounted. So people were migrating, they were working, and they were getting subsidies to try to, maintain a household. Back then, it wasn't no birth control or no Roe versus Wade. You had all 13 of your babies and you had to feed them. Okay, there was no birth control and there was no Roe versus Wade. So yes, you had to feed them. And again, with all of the roadblocks that are put into effect, it's no wonder why we would need those subsidies, right? So the rest of the nation took on the man in the house rule that was New York's invention to try to slow down the migration of the Black man and woman family coming there, where they would be able to benefit from subsidies. And then in 2013, there was, when we talk about, again, how they tried to separate the Black man and the Black woman, even those who were poor, who couldn't afford certain things. First it was, oh, stop having babies. And now it's just weird. One minute you're telling us not to have kids. The other minute you're telling us you need to have all of these kids, but you don't want to help feed these kids, like even to in given times. But even with all of this, again, why are Black people always saying it? Why are we always catching the short end of the stick? Why are we blamed for everything, right? Because, oh, the Black family this, the Black family that, and Black men aren't in the home, and welfare is a reason why we're not united, and the family's not tight because the black man and woman ain't together. Well, some people separated because of the welfare system. Some people separated because they finally were awarded the opportunity to get out of an abusive relationship when prior to it, laws prohibited them from doing so, and being able to survive and be able to feed their kids. So some women and maybe men suffer through. Um, but also, with all of this, again, we get attached to the welfare claim, everything, we blame for everything, gun violence, blah, 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 blah. And then black men not being in the house. Okay, there was a story, there was a report that came on, I think it was I want to say the New York Times in 2013. They reported per the Center for Disease Control, a study that found that black fathers, okay, were more involved in their children's lives compared to other racial groups. And this study was presented again in 2015, just going back to articles, and again in 2023. So when we talk about these things, it's one thing to say what's missing and what's lacking in the black community, and most of these people who are talking, some black people even say this stuff, but the reality is there are about 2.5 million black fathers living with their children and about 1.7 million living apart from them. Okay, and even within them studies, the mass majority of these fathers are spending more time with their children in the household and outside of the household than white fathers and Hispanic fathers, as the study shows. So that's not stopping us. Y'all try everything to stop us, but our DNA is just not set up like that. You know what I'm saying? And then if you have one father or two, or whatever your lived experience is, you try to group us all into that bunch and say, this is who black men are, this is who black women are. No, 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 no. Statistics will show you who we are. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't. Okay, so yeah. And then the other thing is they try to taint the black family by saying there's a growing number of people, the black family, they're not married anymore. Well, in this day and age, there are a lot of men and women, black men and women, who may not be married. It's not on paper, but they do live in the same home, and they do raise their children together, and they do co-parent. So even though you don't have a record, just like you don't have a record of us because we don't report to the census everything, who we are, where we are in our communities, you don't have a record of who's together, because a marriage certificate is paper, right? But the marriage is a whole nother thing. It's a whole commitment. So everybody ain't, on paper. So black men and women are still living together. Some of y'all Christians will call that shacking up, call it what you will, but people are doing things their way. We have our own culture, our own way of living, our own religious beliefs, our own way that we answer to God. And we don't depend on society to tell us how to do it, especially if we ain't asking y'all for shit. So, I'm not going to let y'all talk about my people like that and try to taint us. Yeah. So just imagine if we were just left alone. Just imagine if we were just left alone and allowed to thrive in our entire greatness without being systemically dogged by the school to prison pipeline, mass incarceration, health disparities, and continue to shoulder the gun violence epidemic. Look how we thrive in spite of. Imagine if y'all just left us the fuck alone, where we would be. But that's probably why y'all mess with us, right? Because y'all don't want us to rise, right? We think about all the things that separate the family. When people pass away, like I said, the matriarch of the family is your grandmother or your mother. Do you ever, y'all tell me in the chat again, are there dads out there that'll keep the family together? Are there dads who do dinners and invite people over, invite the whole family over? Are there dads who create traditions in the family? I don't hear that too much either. It's usually the woman. And that's why the black woman is doing self-care right now. We be working overtime to maintain our families' mental, physical, wellness, health, financial, survival, just name some. We work overtime to hold it together. We are the glue, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's something to be very proud of, and that we should be respected for that. And I love my brothers because they do remind us sisters of the importance. And for those who don't, who taught you to hate yourself? Who taught you to hate yourself? That's all I can say. But maybe the family's not as tight because, once people die, then there's no one that takes on that initiative. It's like, oh, now I don't have to be nice to this person because, mama would say, you can't just not come around because you don't like somebody. It's 80 other of us over here. And so you would come just to honor her, right? And now she's not there, so you don't have to honor her in that respect. She's not looking at you like, where was you at? Sometimes it could be because people get sick. and they can't come and be a part of it. And then whatever that nucleus is, that person that's ill helps to kind of cause the family not to be together. Maybe people just don't want to come around because they don't want to deal with the sadness of an illness. People get locked up. You know what I'm saying? That kind of, helps break down us not being close to each other again. I think one of the main systemic things that happened here, I think they did a number on us with the pandemic. I think it helped to train us to live apart. And I will admit, I have absolutely no issues with being alone. Like, I am my friend. I am my own best friend. Like, I love people. I pull up, I show up to my family for my family, but I'm not a person that needs to be around people to feel whole and to be entertained. I'm just saying, I can entertain myself. Y'all heard my corny jokes. I'll be the first one laughing and probably the only one. And I don't care. Yeah, because I'm knocking on that number where you don't give a beep. And so, yeah, that's where I'm at. But it's always that one apple that can spoil an entire world. You know what I'm saying? It's like that one person you don't like, somebody in this family. And I'm not talking about something serious. And I'm gauging seriousness being sexual abuse, physical abuse, theft. You got to hide your jewelry, hide your alcohol. Just something that's going to disrupt the whole meaning behind coming together. I'm not talking about that. But if somebody says something to you wrong, or they owe you $50, or I don't like the way she talked to me the other day, or what, petty stuff to me. Petty stuff that, can be aggravating. It could be a thorn in your side, but nothing worth. I ain't coming over there if she there, because Black people are good for saying who all over there, right? Now, if the drunk uncle is there, no, I'm not coming. If the cousin that used to touch on one of my relatives is over there, no, I'm not coming. But if you allowing us to miss an opportunity to be together, to make more memories and bond and share and bring our kids together, because you just got a funky ass attitude about what was said to you, or somebody owing you money, damn, shame on you. And I'm just saying that, because I think that needs to be said, because one apple can spoil the whole world. Because, sometimes it's like, well, I can't invite this person because I really want this person to come. And, then you got to pick and choose, or then you're just not going to be around that person. Or the only time you're going to be around that person is if it's one-on-one or outside your family circle. And that's like, really? That's not unity to me. That's not tight to me. We don't have memories. And then, so you mad at that person. Is your child mad at that person too? Did you want your child to be mad at that person? I mean, I separated from my son's father early on, but I still reminded my son to contact his father on Father's Day, on his birthday. Like, I didn't want nothing to do with him. I wasn't going to be calling him because, I didn't like him, but I needed to instill in my son the family unit, and to understand how important family is, and to show love and show consideration and show respect, regardless of how I feel about a person. So it really bothers me some ways. Some of the symptoms of just dysfunctional families, unnecessary dysfunction, is narcissism. You know what I'm saying? Another is, again, another money issue. Somebody owe you money, or somebody think they better than you because they got more money, or you think they better than you because they got more money, or because you don't have something, and you think they should be giving you something. Like, people get into it over other people's life insurance. You know what I'm saying? And then the whole family breaks up. Poor communication. You might be thinking one thing and assuming a person meant something one way and it wasn't, but you didn't address it. So now I'm not coming over for family day. I'm not coming over for Christmas. I'm not coming to the family reunion, da, 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 da. Parental favoritism. Some people still have setups and setbacks because they feel like they get treated differently from one parent to the other. So they're not coming around because she treat me different and she like her more, and da, 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 da. Things that need to be talked about. I think those are petty things. Let's work on them. You might be not what you really think it is. And it's okay to be closer to one person than another. If y'all got something more in common, it's not that that person loves you less. They just have a different relationship. It's okay, especially if there's more of y'all to go around. Me having, I think 11 siblings, I'm not close like I am with every one of them. We're not close in the same way. I have, a few that we rocks it, you know what I'm saying? Period. And then there's some we catch up with each other when we can, but the love is there, period. The love ain't went nowhere. Political differences in this climate now, that's probably separating some families too. Now, I will draw the line now. I'm putting you right up there with sexual abuser, drunk uncle. If you over here supporting number 45, I can't look. Yeah, I'll wave. I'll come to the family reunion. I don't want to be in close proximity to you, though, and seriously. But I know that's just me. Yeah, just being estranged from people. You don't know them, so you don't come around them because you really don't know them like that. So you don't feel any type of connection or any need to be with them, around them. Like, I don't know them like that. I remember trying to, with extended family that I didn't really know, introduced by my aunties and mother to them, and we were coming together to try to get a family union so people could know each other, because a lot of us didn't know each other. And like I said, that goes back to, we need to know each other just on the basic terms of us not, you know, having babies with 8 fingers on purpose, because we don't know, you know what I'm saying? And so that was trouble, because going back to people and saying, oh, so and so, I don't know them. Like, they didn't feel any desire to know them. Like, we didn't have that history with them. So why are we trying to build it now? And can I blame them? No, but we need to know. We need to know who our family is. And yeah, but drugs and sexual abuse and grudges, that can all be one of the reasons too. But we have to find a way to get around this, you guys, because family is important. Family is very necessary. We need each other. We are all we got. And we have to be able to pick out the weeds. There are some people who do not deserve to be in our life, and there are some people we just got to work with. It's just like being in a marriage. Like, are you telling me that the person that you're married to, that you're wedded to, that you're committed to, that you live with, that every single day y'all good, y'all don't have no issues, you don't dislike that person one day or 1 minute? Like, how do you work through that? But you can't work through that with your family, like people that you love, because that's what you do. Your kids. I saw somebody post something talking about they 15-year-old. Anybody want a 15-year-old? I'm about to F them up. And I'm like, I feel your pain. We've all had a teenager. Some of us have had teenagers, and we want to kill them because they're crazy. Their hormones are all over the place, and they don't know how to talk right. And they forget that everything they got was bought and paid for by, the person that they sticking their chest out to. So I get it. But somehow I bet you that 15-year-old is still in that house, because they found a way to manage and get through it, because that's what you have to do. This is life. Sometimes we're going to fall short, but we live to see another day and we get through it, right? I'm just saying. And again, I'm not a holiday person. Like, my son was not raised where we put up a Christmas tree and bought gifts. I will partake even this year, just in the name of tradition. Shout out to my cousin and my auntie, who's bringing back a tradition that we've had since I was a little girl, with the Secret Santa. Not all of us are participating, and you don't expect everybody to. You don't know how people's money is. And again, people be feeling the ways that they don't want to pull somebody's name they don't like, and then got to get them something. So I get it. But it is frustrating when all you're trying to do is carry on tradition. Carry on tradition. That's off the, I think it is Hip Hop Is Dead. I can't remember for sure. I guess I could look it up. But, in the name of tradition, in the name of family, in the name of unity, being able to pass something along to your kids and say, this is what we've done, for the love of your family lineage and heritage, you just participate. So I'm doing the Secret Santa, even though I don't do Christmas, but I do my family. I do that, and I do gift exchanges with the people I love. So that's how I have to look at it. Even with what we call family days, some of you still Thanksgiving. Listen, my people like my food. They love for me to cook, and we get together. We have a great time. It's karaoke, it's laughter, and we're going to talk about the history of Thanksgiving or anything else we want to talk about. It's a time to build. It's a time to bond. It's a time to make more memories and to allow our children to build bonds, the same privileges we had. And so that's the kind of things we have to look into. But I do see there's going to be some more. This is going to become even a bigger epidemic. I don't know how you guys feel. You can tell me, but I think it will become a bigger epidemic. Let me get into this chat, y'all. I'm sorry. I'm just running my mouth. Shout out to Marmac, who says, it sucks when the OG of the family checks out. Should be in shambles and disarray. Listen, I feel you on that. I feel you so much. I've been told, for me, I'm the matriarch of the family. Mind you, I consider myself young under the term of matriarch. And I didn't sign up to be in a position to keep the family together. It's just something that's in my heart. It's in my heart. I love my family, and I love the bonds of, it's just who I am. When I bought my first home, my intentions, aside from the fact of giving my son a great community, everything was in walking distance, even though he didn't appreciate none of it. YMCA, library, everything, parks, all the things I didn't have was in walking distance to this kid. But aside from that, sidebar stuff, I bought my first house thinking about my family. Remember when I talked earlier saying being able to pull up to Granny house, just having a staple. We all knew if it was something going on, it was going to be here. Well, that's how I felt about my first home. This is where we can all come, and we always have a place to go. Because growing up, it wasn't always stability. We didn't always have a place. We moved around a lot, and I wanted to bring something different to my family. And yeah, and then you see how people just get into it about the littlest things, and that you get tired. You get tired of trying, and other people aren't trying, and then you feel guilty as a person who does what they do because they love their family so much, and they know they need each other, as we all need each other. But you get tired, and so it is sad when the OG checks out, not just passes away, but literally still alive, but just like, listen, I'm putting on my oxygen mask. It's the braces. I'm putting on my oxygen mask, and I'll try to figure out the rest of this later, because I'm not going to be stressing myself. Maybe it's a little vain. I'm not trying to have premature aging, chasing people around, but I pray that God will instill in me what is needed to bring those people that I know that need each other in my family together, and that we stay united and bring our family back together. But yeah, it is sad when the OG checks out. And I feel people who do give up. I used to judge them like, why you just gonna give up on people? But everybody has, you know, they have their breaking point. And shout out to people who, when you see the OG, you know, feeling, the loads get heavy, they come and grab something off her back or his back, so that they can kind of get that hunch out their back and look up to the sky and see a brighter day. Because if you don't have anybody to keep you motivated to do those things, sometimes it's not, some of us may, you look at us like superwoman, but Superwoman get tired too. That's all. Superwoman get tired too. Shout out to my girl in the YouTube, genuinely poised. She says, my daddy always kept his kids around his family. That's what's up. That's a male figure that was a nucleus. That's what's up. 3 different mothers, 4 kids, yet he made sure we came around. When he passed, it stopped. That's what's up. And I love that about dads who do that, because a lot of times it is, a lot of fathers, have women with different children, and, the children don't have the same bonds as the kids who grew up in the house with their mothers, so you don't get that same bond that you would have with your siblings who you grew up in a house with that live in different homes. But for that man who made sure that his kids was always together, took trips together, who pulled up to the family functions together, family reunions, made time for them to do things together, and just sleep, spend a night together, weekends together. Shout out to dad. That just made me feel so warm. And I know there's a lot of men out there like that. So I'm not, this isn't a anomaly, but I just love reading this, because, sometimes you forget about those men, and we shouldn't. And they are the nucleus as well. But this is what we have to do. We have to keep the families together, because that does bring some level of animosity too. When you don't grow up in the same house, you may feel like you're being treated differently by that parent because of the bonds they have. So yeah, thank you for adding to the conversation. I appreciate that. But yeah, I do see that there's going to be more of a breakdown in the family bonding. One of the main things that I thought about was the fact that when you think about like in vitro fertilization, where you can go to a sperm bank, and make a baby. And I'm not mad at anybody who wants to have a baby. I mean, there's lots of kids in the foster care system, but I'm not mad at anybody who wants to make their own baby. But one thing I think about is some of these families are intentionally, purposefully, knowingly denying that child the opportunity to know who their family is. And who's to say they won't be sleeping with a sibling, because you don't know where that sperm came from, or the egg, because people are donating their eggs too. So 30 to 60,000 children are conceived with sperm, with a sperm donor each year. And then with the egg donors, it's a lot less. It's, much less, but there's still egg donors out there. But there's no formal structure. Again, I talked about how when we were freed in the 1800s, that we held on to the slave owner's name because we wanted our families to be able to identify us. Like, that's the Smith family. He came from the Smith. Oh, that's my son. My son, he was raised with the Smiths. And so they held on to those names for that reason. I think that was a smart thing to do. Another way that we survive, right? We survive with what we have. We work with what we have. But those are one of the things I think about. Like, I'm not gonna say what you should do. You shouldn't go to a sperm bank or get an egg donated, when you can go to a foster care system and take a needy child in and treat them good and love them right. But that is a risk we're taking now, that we might see more deformities in children and blame it on other things outside of the fact that they might be mating with someone that they don't know share the same bloodline, could be as close as their own sister or brother, because we don't know where that sperm came from, and that child or whoever they're mating with doesn't know that they got a sperm or whatever. So that's another thing that concerns me as well. But I want to encourage people that even if there is, downtime where your family, you don't feel like their family is what it used to be, as long as we're still living and breathing, there's still an opportunity to make it something special, even if it's not going to be what it was, because, things change. Nothing really stays the same. For example, people pass away, and then of course it'll never be the same. Even if everybody else still came around, that one person that was the loudest in the room and had told the funniest jokes is no longer there. The one that we used to tease all the time and arm wrestle with is no longer there. So even in situations where we still come together, but somebody's missing, they're incarcerated or they passed away or they're disabled, they can't come to the function or they can't be around people. And so they're missing in whatever form. It's never going to be the same. So we can build new traditions. We just have to stay with keeping our families together. Being together is very necessary. We are all we got. And many of us are good people. We have our issues. Everybody has their flaws. No one was perfect. As far as I'm concerned, from what I've been taught, Jesus was the only one who was holy, not mixed, diluted, and tampered with. And I got my questions about that too. But other than that, we all are considered human. So along with that humanity comes imperfections. So as long as we're not, like I said, a menace to society, which is a term I like to use, where, yeah, you shouldn't be around people. And think about what that means, to be a menace to society, like a serial killer, a sexual abuser, child molester, just a woman beater or a man beater, just people like that. We don't need them around. They need to go get help. And if they get rehabilitated and fix their life and repent, do what you will with them. But yeah, I don't want to discourage you all. I do hope that, if you do decide to come together, I know people that won't even come around for family day because they no longer celebrate. But you have to make it meaningful. You have to chew up the meat and spit out the bones. You can't just throw the whole baby out with the bathwater. Sometimes you definitely, your family is worth sometimes the sacrifice of just doing something that you may not support. Maybe you don't do a gift exchange. Maybe you don't eat the turkey. Maybe you don't eat it all. Maybe you're just there in the present form. Your present is the present. Sometimes your presence is the present. And so maybe you're just showing up to show your face and show that you're still around. And that's because I don't want to see you when you're laying down. I don't want to see you like that. I try to avoid that. But I want to see you when you're standing up. I want to see you when you can communicate, when you can put your whole arms around me and squeeze me tight and love me and tease me and joke with me, laugh with me, cry with me, play games, let me whoop you in spades. I'm just talking because, yeah. Probably. Oh, I didn't beat some people now. I didn't beat some people. Don't get it twisted. But I won't never say I'm all of that, because people cheat real good. That's all I'm saying. People cheat real good. And I thank you guys for just chiming in to the conversation. Be inspired, you guys. I'm going to be inspired as well, and I pray each day that whatever I would like to see better, that God puts it on my heart and on my mind to show me how to do that. So. All is not lost, right? But I still think that we got some work to do. And hold your head up, Black family, because we dope. We real dope. You the history of what we've come through, been through here. We dope, okay? Don't you even worry about it. And so thank you all. Let me go ahead and give my shout out to the people in the chat and those watching me live. I love and appreciate y'all. Wrong one. And for those of you who watch later, I love and appreciate y'all as well. Don't be shy. You can comment later. You know, if you feel impelled to, go ahead and share the video. Hit the like button at least. But yeah, please comment. You know, share your thoughts. Give your perspective. Trolls, y'all can just go somewhere. I don't know why y'all need all that attention. Um, I just wish y'all could find a friend, somebody to love you. But other people, the good people out there, you know, keep your head up, engage. I'm here next Saturday. We'll keep doing this as long as y'all show up. I will too. I love y'all. Enjoy the holidays. Enjoy your day. And, you know, don't go mess up nobody else's, like Tabitha say. But I've been saying that. I don't like to rain on other people's parades. But, okay, y'all. Love you. Talk to you later, okay? Bye-bye.